Artificial intelligence is no longer a moonshot or a trope of late-night science fiction. In 2026, it has become something foundational. It is fire, it is electricity. To its architects, it represents the most profound leap in human capability since we mastered steam. But to the global workforce, it is an exogenous shock, a sudden, blinding storm threatening to displace millions of white-collar professionals in a matter of years. But how did we reach this precipice? The story of AI is not a straight line of steady, predictable progress. It is a volatile saga of explosive summers, fueled by radical hype, followed by bitter, decades-long winters. The formal journey didn't begin in Silicon Valley, but in the chaotic landscape of World War II. In 1943, neurophysiologist Warren McCulloch and logician Walter Pitts published a radical theory. They proposed that the human brain's complex electrical network could be entirely modeled using basic mathematical logic. McCulloch and Pitts did something revolutionary. They stripped away the mysticism of the human mind. They essentially argued that if the biological brain is a computational machine, then a machine made of vacuum tubes and copper wire could, in theory, simulate human thought. 7 years later, a British mathematician named Alan Turing bypassed the philosophical gridlock of how a brain works, and focused entirely on what a brain does. In his landmark 1950 paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, he introduced the imitation game, what we now call the Turing test. Turing argued a simple truth: if a machine can converse well enough to strip a human of their ability to tell it apart from another person, we have no choice but to grant it the status of intelligence. Yet, the field didn't even have a name until the summer of 1956 at the Dartmouth workshop. John McCarthy, a brilliant young mathematician, organized a 2-month study based on an incredibly bold, borderline arrogant conjecture that every aspect of learning or intelligence could be so precisely described that a machine could be built to simulate it. To distinguish his vision from the prevailing, hardware-centric field of cybernetics, McCarthy coined a new phrase: artificial intelligence. The hype machine was officially born. The early optimism was intoxicating. In 1965, AI pioneer Herbert Simon confidently predicted that machines would be capable, within 20 years, of doing any work a man could do. He was spectacularly wrong. The technology of the era hit a hard, unyielding wall: a severe lack of raw computing power and a total absence of data. By the mid-1970s, governments grew tired of waiting for the sentient machines they were promised. In the United Kingdom, the devastating Lighthill report completely dismantled the field, criticizing AI researchers for pursuing grandiose objectives, while failing to solve basic, real-world problems. Almost overnight, public and private funding evaporated. The field saw a brief, lucrative revival in the 1980s with the rise of expert systems. These were massive software programs designed to mimic human experts by hardcoding thousands of complex, if-then, rules. For a fleeting moment, AI was a billion-dollar industry. But these systems were incredibly brittle. They couldn't adapt, they couldn't learn on their own, and updating them required armies of expensive programmers. By 1987, the commercial market for specialized AI hardware collapsed. The second AI winter began. The words, artificial intelligence, became a career-killing stigma. Researchers actively scrubbed the phrase from their resumes, choosing neutral, quiet alternatives like informatics or machine learning, just to keep their lab lights on. The massive AI spring we are living in today wasn't triggered by some sudden, miraculous breakthrough in human philosophy. The core math behind neural networks had been around since the 1980s. Instead, the modern revolution was built on sheer brute force. 3 independent pillars finally converged: an explosion of internet-scale data, the raw processing power of graphics cards originally designed for video games, and refined algorithms. In 2012, a deep convolutional neural network named AlexNet didn't just win the prestigious ImageNet computer vision competition, it completely pulverized the existing state-of-the-art. It proved to a skeptical scientific community that neural networks actually scaled. The deeper you built them, and the more data you fed them, the smarter they got. Then, in 2017, researchers at Google published a paper that changed everything. Attention is all you need. They introduced the transformer architecture, a brilliant mechanism that allowed software to process vast sequences of data simultaneously and understand the deep, structural context of language. With the release of ChatGPT in late 2022, AI broke out of the laboratory and landed directly on the global boardroom desk. By 2024, the undisputed pioneers of this modern era, John Hopfield and Geoffrey Hinton, were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. It was a historic, symbolic declaration from the global scientific establishment. Artificial intelligence had officially come of age. It is now 2026. The speculative dust has finally settled, and the hard data is in. Using the comprehensive FAIR framework, economists have pinned down exactly where the structural disruption is hitting hardest. Office and administrative support is bearing the brunt of the initial impact, facing a staggering 90.2% displacement risk. Finance and accounting closely follows at 84.2%, as automated workflows handle audits, reconciliations, and routine forecasting with absolute precision. And in a deep twist of irony, technology and IT, the very architects of this revolution, faces a 74.8% structural risk, particularly within software testing, technical support, and basic infrastructure deployment roles. While an eye can code a full website but it can't give a therapy to a patient or shave a beard, this incapability of an eye is known as the Morawitz's paradox. The Morawitz's paradox is the reason AI is taking jobs in other sectors while the personal care and services sector is still operated by humans. This tells how an AI can beat a grandmaster like Garry Kasparov but can't organize an untidy room or shave a beard. This brings us to a dark, systemic danger that an individual company simply cannot see from its own balance sheet: the AI layoff trap. Think of it as a classic tragedy of the commons, but applied directly to corporate payrolls. When an individual company fires its white-collar workforce and replaces them with an enterprise AI system, it successfully captures 100% of the immediate cost savings. Profit margins go up, shareholders celebrate. But there is a massive catch. Those displaced workers aren't just line items on an expense sheet. They are the active consumers who buy products across the entire economy. When consumer income drops across multiple sectors simultaneously, aggregate economic demand for these products begins to drop as well. The core of the trap lies in the misaligned incentives. While a single firm captures the full reward of its cost-cutting, it only bears a tiny fraction of the resulting drop in consumer demand. The rest of that damage is pushed onto its competitors. This mismatch creates a fierce corporate arms race, where companies race to automate as fast as possible, straight toward a macroeconomic demand cliff. By 2026, leading macroeconomists are warning that simply implementing a universal basic income to raise the baseline standard of living does not fix the underlying corporate incentive to automate. Instead, policy conversations are shifting toward a targeted Pigouvian automation tax. This is a specialized tax structure specifically calibrated to match the broader social and economic cost of demand destruction, ensuring that the financial gains of automation are structurally balanced against the preservation of the wider consumer economy.
The optimization increased efficiency by 20%. Human labor, not your machines.
We're standing at a historic crossroads. Looking back, the first industrial revolution took nearly 150 painful years of structural disruption, child labor battles, and social upheaval to eventually rebuild a stable middle class and a modern education system. In 2026, we don't have the luxury of a 150-year cushion. The current transition is moving at the breakneck speed of software deployment. The defining choice for this generation is not a simple, binary debate of human versus machine. It is about stepping up and taking a proactive stance. It means designing an economic framework that rewards companies for using AI to augment human capability, rather than using it to simply strip away human livelihoods. The ultimate question is no longer, will a machine take my job? The real question we must answer is, what do we want AI to do with our working lives? Because in the end, the architecture of our economy is a deliberate choice, not an inevitability.